Hey everybody, Ryan Medore here, and welcome back to another bass lesson. Today we're going to talk a little bit about constructing a bass line and improvising, and also differentiating between sections of a song, thinking about how you can kind of take a verse and make it feel a little bit different from a chorus and do some fun stuff with it and come up with different musical ideas. So if you want to get tab or notation, anything to go along with this lesson, please head over to my Patreon page. You can support this channel there and get all the extra goodies. And in the meantime, I'm going to kind of go through my process for creating a bass line, improvising, playing to changes, and also differentiating between feels. So let's jump right in. Today I am working in the key of A, and I'm playing over a chord progression called like the 1, 5, 6, 4, meaning that if we're in the key of A, A is my 1 chord, and I'll start here. My 5 chord is going to be E major, and I can find that here, or use my low E for finding the root notes of that chord. My 6 chord is going to be a minor chord, and it's going to be an F sharp minor, which I can find here, or here, or here. And then my 4 chord is going to be a D major chord, which I can get here. I can get it up here or here. And as you can see, the very first thing that I'm doing is I'm thinking about the key that I'm in, my chord progression, and then where I can kind of target my root notes. So that's kind of like step 1 in terms of improvising and coming up with a way to create and construct a bass line, where I'm thinking, okay, I'm in the key of A, here's my A major scale. But that's not just what I'm using. I'm thinking about that as the first part of what I'm using to create movement within this bass line, where I'm thinking, okay, here's my A, I can play my regular 4-fret span shape and find my 1, my 5, my 6, and my 4, but I can also think about other scale shapes and find my 5 here, my 6 here, my 4 here. I could go descending and I can find my 1, my lower 5th, my 6, and my 4. And the very first thing that I'm doing is I'm just kind of targeting places around the neck where I know I can find my root notes of these chords. So that's a great thing to do when you're thinking about ways to construct a bass line. Just don't think about like, oh, where's the one place I know to find this note? Think about, well, where are 3 or 4 different places to find this note? Because that will give you, just spatial awareness and movement around your fretboard so that you can choose to, differentiate between going up to the interval or down to the interval. Playing from this A up to this E is going to feel very different than playing from this A to your open E string. It's a totally different vibe and can really add a lot to your part. So that's kind of thing number 1, is like knowing my chord progression, finding different places on the fretboard to find those intervals, and then kind of like clocking that movement. I'm also thinking about, the distance between one interval and the next. So if I know that here's my A, and then my 5 is this E, if I want to find my next chord, which is that F sharp minor, that's going to be a whole step up. So I can think, okay, E to the F sharp here, I could go from this E to this F sharp, I could go from this E to that F sharp. I'm kind of thinking in terms of like the chord that I'm at and then the chord that I'm going to. And I can also similarly do that, with the next group of chords in the progression, going from that F sharp to the D. I can think here to here, or I can go from here to here, or I can go from here to here. There I went from my low F sharp up to the D. I can go from this F sharp to this D. I'm just finding all these different places. If I want to, I can also go from this F sharp up to this high D. There's so many different ways you can navigate it. And that's really kind of part of this process is, again, finding your key, knowing your chord progression, searching for the intervals in different places, and then thinking about what chord you're on, where you're going, and that intervallic movement between those chords. And then next, we're going to talk a little bit about feel, because that's going to be your next thing that's really going to differentiate sections and let you improvise something. So I might say, you know what? I'm going to think about this as going from like a verse of a song to a chorus of the song, where maybe the chord progression stays exactly the same, but the energy that I want to infuse to that chord progression is going to be different. So maybe I'll create a rhythmic pattern that'll kind of, match my kick drum. So I might go something like that. Or if I know my kick is going to go 1, 2, 3, and 1. If I do that kind of a kick feel, then I can kind of take that and move it through my chord progression. I'm going up to my 5, I'm gonna go up to my 6. I'm gonna take it down to the 4. And maybe I'll throw in some kind of like roots and fifths. Maybe kind of do something like that where I'm playing my E, my lower fifth of it, back to the root note. Do the same thing on this chord, the 6th chord, that F sharp. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to kind of build my bass line in layers where, again, I'm thinking about the register that I'm going to and where I can find my chords. Then I'm thinking about the basic pulse I want to give it. And then I'm going to throw in some notes, that work really well with the chord. So roots and fifths. And in particular, I'm kind of using my lower fifth right now, but I could throw in my higher fifth if I wanted to. As much. So it's okay to kind of make that choice and be like, yeah, you know what? That isn't quite working for me. Maybe I should stick with my lower fifths. Ah, there we go. That sounds better. I'm going to throw in some passing notes. Moving around using my scale as well. So you can kind of see that we're just slowly building in complexity where we're kind of crafting this bass part. So we've got our roots. I'm using my roots and my lower fifths. And now I'm going to start adding tones to kind of serve as passing movement between the chords. And we're starting to, add a little bit more movement here. Now, the next thing that I want to do is say, you know what? This is kind of the approach I'm going to take from my verse of the song. If I'm doing a chorus, maybe I'm going to give it a different energy. So instead of kind of sticking to that primary rhythm and that pulse that I'm adding to what my verse is going to be, for the chorus of the song, I'm going to kind of like just play pedals. I'm going to go playing consistent eighth notes, and that's going to kind of lift the energy. Now, again, remember, this is kind of like a made-up thing. This is like an improvised, creative space that we're playing with. So while I'm referring to like a verse and a chorus of a song, this is just a song that we're kind of like making up on the spot. So that if you're improvising, or if you're jamming, or doing something like that, this is a great approach to take to it where, we're not playing a specific song, but we're talking about developing an approach to creativity and to crafting a part. So let's see what it sounds like if we kind of throw in these pedals and play consistent eighth notes. Feeling pretty good? But it's a little banal, a little close to what I was doing before. Aha! If I take the register to a different place, it's kind of cool. Now I'm going to find my notes in different places. Let's climb it. Already, with that kind of movement, it feels like a totally different section of the song. We're pedaling, we're going between playing these notes in different places like we did at the get-go, where sometimes I can play this high A, or this one, I can go to my low E, I can do some slides, I can get my F sharp over here, I can go to my D, find it higher up. There's a lot that you can do to really kind of like go up and down the fretboard, take advantage of the full range of the instrument, and really craft something that's special. And then you can kind of create little themes. Like there's this little melodic theme that sounds really good, which is really just 3, 2, 1. So I'm thinking, here's my A, my root note, here's the octave, 3, 2, 1, or mi, re, do. That's all I'm playing. But I can actually play this theme across all the chords, and it's going to sound pretty cool. So if I wanted to start up here. I just took that same theme and I played it as kind of this cool little moment that happens at the back end of all the bars before I transition to the next chord. And that's a really cool thing to do. So I hope that you found this useful in terms of ideas for creating a bass line. So if you kind of spell it out one after the other, think about your chord progression, think about the sections of your song, find your intervals in different places, commit to different rhythmic feels for this different section. So say, hey man, I'm gonna, focus on this rhythmic pulse or this pattern for one section, and then maybe I'll pedal for another section. Then integrate other things like chord tones or other passing notes like fifths or just moving around the scale. And then finally, adding little themes that become parts of this bass line that become recognizable. So there's so many different ways that you can craft a bass line, but this is a great way to get started. So I hope you dug this lesson. Again, head over to my Patreon page to support and get all the goodies to go along with this lesson. And happy practicing, everybody. Keep it groovy.